That your talk, I think, calls for a certain amount of free association in the listener. And in terms of the discourse, at least of maybe Northern California parents at this time, the word helpless enters one's own language, at least my language, when my children actually need help less. In other words, that when a child is truly helpless as a parent, right, or someone who has charge of that child, you don't think of them as helpless. And that the word helpless activates somehow that question of needing help more, needing help less, and becomes a kind of almost a term of rebuke, encouragement. And so, helplessness, free associating a little bit, is what I think the parent of an adolescent learns to do. It's a kind of state of paying attention, but not paying attention too much.
Well, just to associate to your point, two things occur to me. One is that one's own children's helplessness is unbearable at some level. And so one question would be why that is, and presumably it's partly because our own is unbearable. Let's say if we started from the position there was a fundamental solidarity of helplessness, it seems to me when our children were helpless, we'd think they're being people like us. The other point, I think, is to do with the helplessness of the parents in relation to the child. Because very often it seems to me, again, on the one hand you'd think, of course parents are helpless in relation to children. That's the point, not the problem. But the other bit of it, which I think is more subject to, as it were, social engineering, is that a lot of the rage, a lot of the helplessness that adults feel with children is narcissistic rage. That the child in these moments is affronting the adult's picture of what they need the child to be. And that too is a potentially instructive experience. Not that we can all be sort of Rodin's thinkers at the moment at which our children are having tantrums, but it seems to me it's possible to reflect on the way in which one is scandalized by one's child having desires that one doesn't want to include. And that also must be a part of the helplessness deal, it seems to me. That would be fundamentally acknowledged. And that, of course, one of the difficult things about being a parent is you have to frustrate your children. And one is helpless to do anything else, and it couldn't be otherwise. Indeed, the quest to satisfy one's children is a terrible thing. Terribly distracting thing. And that is the end of my sermon on child rearing.